everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Newhallywood Silent Film Festival. We are very honored to be joined for our next guest, a world-renowned film historian, film critic. You've seen him everywhere. You've seen his books for decades, his podcasts, TCM festivals, all these places. I think that you were even a subject of a Simpsons episode one time, if I recall.
I was mentioned. I was mentioned by Marge.
All right. Well, Leonard Maltin, thank you very, very much for taking the time to join us today.
Happy to be with you, EJ.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do anything that promotes silent film.
Yeah.
Because that's what really got me hooked on movie history and kind of changed the course of my life.
Tell us about that. What do you remember, because I remember the first silent film I ever saw. It was actually at Disneyland. With them on there.
A lot of people say that the Main Street movie theater.
That's exactly what it was. Yes, and that's what hooked me. Do you remember what reeled you in?
Yeah, I remember there are a couple things that happened around the same time. I'm a child of the first television generation, and for one thing, the Howdy Doody show used to show silent comedy shorts. And I didn't know who these people were that were running around, getting into all sorts of slapstick predicaments, but I found that very entertaining. Then my parents took me to see a film in Manhattan at the Guild Theater, which was improbably built behind Radio City Music Hall. And they showed a film called The Golden Age of Comedy. And there was a standee outside the theater of Laurel and Hardy. And we went in, and it was love at first sight. They weren't the only ones in the film. There were a lot of silent comedians included in this compilation film by a man named Robert Youngson, who I later got to meet and got to know a little bit. What a treat that was to be able to thank him for giving me this great gift of opening the door to silent movies. And then I was a curious kid. I certainly wasn't an outdoor kid. I was no good at sports. I had no interest in anything like that. And all my interests were reading and drawing and writing and watching TV. And so I started reading. I went to my local public library and took out my first movie-related book, which was Max Sennett's autobiography called King of Comedy.
Right.
And I took it out and read it and brought it back and then checked it out again, read it again. And eventually, many years later, I got to buy my own copy of the book. And also in later years, I found out that Max Sennett, who was the great pioneering comedy producer, the man who, I guess his greatest credentials, that he discovered Charlie Chaplin. Well, a lot of the stories he tells in that book may not be literally true. They were embellished. But what he does capture that it is authentic is the flavor and the atmosphere of that early period in Hollywood. He came out here, I think, in 1912 or 1913 with his leading lady, Mabel Normand. And he had a star comedian, then was Ford Sterling. And this was a time when, this is literally true, he heard that they were draining a lake in Los Angeles. And he said, all right, let's go and shoot something. This is the biggest special effect we can get, and it's not going to cost us 10 cents.
Right.
So they went and they built a movie around that real life happenstance. That's the kind of thing you could do in those days. They used to say, give me a girl and a guy and a park bench and we'll make a film out of it. And he had to do that almost weekly. Almost every week they had to ship a film back to New York to their distributor. Well, I just found all of that utterly hypnotic, fascinating. And that's what set me on the course that I'm still on to this day, learning about movie history and Hollywood history, and writing about it. And I've been very blessed to get to do that.
Yeah, that's probably the thing I love most about that era is because, I mean, even when you watch some of the early Max Sennett comedies, like even Kid Auto Races at Venice with Chaplin, his first movie, you can just tell they're making it up on the fly. And
yes, and it's talk about being in a time trip. You're stepping into a time capsule, going back to Venice Beach, 1914, the very beginning of 1914. And Charlie Chaplin is a total unknown at that moment. I mean, he's been working in a music hall troupe, what we call over here a vaudeville troupe, for a man named Fred Carno. And he sailed over and played vaudeville around the States. Now he's in California, and he's just cooked up this makeup and costume of a little tramp. And the director, you can almost picture it happening. So shoving him in front of the camera and saying, mingle with the crowd, do something funny, just,
photobombers. Yeah.
Exactly. And they are, some of the crowd is reacting to him, but a lot of them aren't, because he's not the world famous Charlie Chaplin yet. And to be able to make that leap of faith, as well as that leap of time and place, is I find mesmerizing.
Yeah, one of the things I love so much about that film is you do see some of the boys up front laughing at this guy clowning in front of the camera, and I always think, if those guys didn't laugh, would we have Charlie Chaplin today?
Yeah.
It's like they were there at the creation of a legend.
That's
I
right.
think that's amazing.
That's right.
Now, you talked about the Keystone. I mean, I'm sure you have the same feeling, but I just love. Sometimes I go to what used to be Edendale, and just there's a Jack in the Box there I go to just to be close to what was once Keystone. I mean, it's so amazing that we still have these places. I mean, we lost a lot of them, we have, but the ones that we're able to preserve around here, sometimes I just have to go get my fix.
But remember, I grew up on the other coast. I was in New Jersey when I was reading Max Sennett's book.
Right.
And so California not only seemed, but was a long way off, literally and even figuratively in my life. Now I've been here since 1983. So now this feels like home. But to a kid, California was, kind of exotic.
Right.
And so all those stories had a real resonance.
I relate. I'm from Indiana, so same thing with me. When I came out here, I wanted to find these places, and I still love doing it to this day. One of the things we're trying to do with our film festival, and you've been so gracious with your time and helping us all through the years, and we really appreciate that. But since we're doing this online this year, we are trying to not only show some films and some interviews like this and that type of thing, but we're also we want to honor a couple people in general. We have created a thing. It's online. We have no brick and mortar building yet. One of these days, maybe we will. But we've created for this film festival the Newhallywood Silent Film Hall of Fame, and our first two inductees are William S. Hart and George Méliès. I wanted to get someone in front of the camera, someone behind the camera, and
you couldn't pick two better people to honor.
Yeah. So especially since we, in a non-pandemic year, we would be doing this film festival at William S. Hart's house,
Right.
So I'm always amazed when I watch both of their films that they still hold up.
Oh, sure. A Trip to the Moon, which is Méliès, most famous work. A friend of mine who's done a lot of work on restoring the Méliès refers to it as his masterpiece. I don't mind using that word. I don't like hype words, but in this case, I don't think it's hype.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's more than a century old. Well, almost 120 years old now.
That's right.
And yet that image of the man in the moon, the Swiss cheese man in the moon,
Uh-huh.
the rocket in his eye, is known and recognized around the globe by people who've never seen the film,
Right.
or who may never have seen the film, but they recognize that iconic image.
Mm-hmm.
So to have created something that lasts and makes that deep an impression on the public is no small achievement. And of course, that was just one of literally hundreds of short films that Méliès made. And he was a stage magician and director and designer. And he applied the trickery and techniques of the stage, this new medium of film, and then added to that what he learned by doing. That you could use both stagecraft and the new art and science of movies to do magical things.
Yeah, I always think the term movie magic must have been created by him,
Yeah.
because he's actually a magician there on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what's so amazing, one of the great things about, lockdown is I was able to watch a lot of old films, a lot of Méliès films that I'd never seen, and they're brilliant. I mean, they're amazing. This was 1902, or whatever. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have computer graphics, CGI, computer imagery is an astonishing thing, and it's been used brilliantly. It's been used as well, overused, shoved down our throats. When it's used wisely or artfully, it's a pretty incredible tool. But Méliès, who had none of that,
right,
achieved some equally amazing, eye-popping effects in the simplest way imaginable. And yet they still
hold up.
They still enchant an audience,
Yeah, amazing.
Still win over a crowd. So he's one of a kind. There was no second Méliès. There was only one.
Right.
And he's the one. Now, William S. Hart is a longtime favorite of mine. When I got interested in silent films, I pestered my folks, and they finally got me my first projector, which was a part of a life lesson in false advertising. It was a mail order, the mail order catalog that offered a projector that was said to be battery operated. The only thing that operated by battery is the little pen light that you had to crank.
Okay. But that was authentic for silent film.
Well, yes, more authentic than they realized.
Yeah.
But then we got an 8mm projector. It's not an 8mm video. This is 8mm film, because like a lot of baby boom families, post-war families, they took home movies. Me and my brother, our travels, and they had this projector to show them on. And I found out that you could buy, silent films in 8mm format. So I would save my money, and every birthday, that's what I wanted as my present. And I even joined a club that where I got to rent meter features, ship them to the guy who ran this little roundabout rental organization. Organization is too fancy word for what this was. But and one of the films that I got to see that way was Hell's Hinges.
Right.
1915, William S. Hart feature. And I was very much taken with him, with that particular movie. And I still think it holds up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a very potent drama. And it's a very indicative of the kind of so-called, what was they called, the good bad man that he played most typically. I I find him a fascinating figure, actually. And I remember my first trip here to Los Angeles. I was with some friends. We made a field trip out to William S. Hart Ranch. That was very exciting. And then I found a copy of his autobiography that was inscribed.
Wow.
Very happy to add that to my library. And so, so if you were going to pick two people at random to sort of represent the silent film era, I don't think you could do better. But of course, that's highly subjective. I just happen to like them.
Yeah. Yeah, and we are so lucky here in Newhall to have William S. Hart's property. I mean, the mansion's getting soon will be 100 years old, but we still have, the park, and it's a great place to visit. And it's great that the city has promoted things like this, the Silent Film Festival and that type of thing. So his legacy literally lives on in his property.
When you had that wonderful event in 2011, was it?
Yeah, we had a what was called Chaplain Fest. Yeah.
Right. And we found our mutual friend, John Bengtson, the Mr. Keen tracer of
yes.
Lost Locations, when he did that presentation about the Saugus train depot, which, I mean, how you couldn't invent that. You couldn't predict that a train depot, which was shuttered and then moved to this property, would turn out to also be a silent movie location on its own.
Right, that's right.
And Charlie Chaplin, no less than Charlie Chaplin, made use of. That's wonderful. It's almost poetic.
It is. It is. I'll never forget our trip out to the Modern Times site too, where which another one of those iconic scenes that people who have never seen a silent movie will recognize of Chaplin and Paulette Goddard walking off into the sunset there, and that is a short distance away from here, and it looks the same. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, just how many places in LA still look the same after 90 years or whatever, right? Yeah. So I know that you're a guy who keeps himself busy. What have you been doing during the pandemic?
Well, I've been very lucky in that I've had two book projects keep me occupied and distracted.
Right. We all need that. Yeah.
Yes. And over the last 11 months, it's been, I think, healthy for me, for anyone, to have a distraction, because this is a very tough time for any of us to get through, for all the obvious reasons. And so I was very happy to have something to motivate me and occupy me in a positive way every day. The first book I did was for the folks at Netflix who have prospered during the pandemic.
They've loved it. Yes.
And they released a really charming animated feature called Over the Moon late last year, or right around the holidays. They wanted to produce a coffee table book, accompany the film, and they hired me to write the text for this coffee table book. And it was produced in China and Vancouver and Los Angeles.
Okay.
And the man who directed it is a fellow I've known casually over the years. His name is Glenn Keane. And he is the master animator who spent 37 years at the Walt Disney Studio. He designed and animated Ariel and the Little Mermaid.
Oh, really?
Wow. He animated the Beast and Beauty and the Beast, Tarzan and their Tarzan, and on and on and on and on. And after being there so many years, he decided to finally go off on his own and won an Academy Award for directing a short called Dear Basketball, which he made with Kobe Bryant.
With Kobe, right.
And so he's an Oscar-winning animation director. And this was his first feature-length film as director. And I got to interview him, and sitting right here and using Zoom, interviewed people all over the world who worked on this movie. And they had to complete the movie during pandemic. And somehow find ways to work and communicate and do post-production. Fortunately, they were almost finished with the animation itself. There's still a lot of cleanup work to be done, and they managed to do it, as others have too.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a very stimulating project to work on. And once that was put to bed, now a book that could be purchased and read, I started working on another book that's going to come out this fall, God willing, called Starstruck. And it's my story.
Okay.
The story of my life in anecdotes. And I don't call it an autobiography because it's not that personal. It is personal, but it's not. I mean, I've had a lot of wonderful experiences, and I think other film lovers, film buffs, will enjoy reading about. Beginning at age 13, when I met Buster Keaton.
I'm sure you were starstruck at that time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I've had, a wonderful string of experiences like that. That's what I've been writing. And it's been fun to, jog my memory and lay all this out. And the book's pretty well finished now and on its way to publication.
Wonderful. Are you still going to be, I imagine you're still going to be doing your Leonard Maltin annual movie book, correct?
Oh, no, that's ceased publication.
Oh, has it? Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
It's still in print. The last edition is the 2015 edition.
I did not know that. Wow.
But what is also still in print is more germane to what we're talking about is my classic movie guide.
Okay.
Which is now in its third revision, third edition. And it bears the imprint of Turner Classic Movies, which is nice to have.
Sure.
And it's got 10,000 capsule reviews of films from the silent era, only up to 1965.
Amazing.
That's as modern as that book gets. And what we found is that over the years of doing that annual movie directory, there were a lot of movies, there were like 1,000 movies we never ever got to cover.
Really?
That now are in circulation.
Okay.
Because of TCM, because of Blu-ray and DVD release, because of YouTube. So that was very satisfying to get to put those into a reference guide that people can consult.
I was always amazed at your reference guides because one of the things that I always wondered was these reviews were never completely written, I would think, because maybe somebody burst out of a film and became a star later, and now you have to go back and say, oh yeah, she appears here.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're constantly learning things. When we were doing the annual guide, that was my favorite pastime from year to year, was every year somebody would become well-known who wasn't well-known just a year earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But there are very few literal overnight success stories in show business. So it would turn out that someone like Octavia Spencer, well, she was no newcomer.
Mm-hmm.
She'd been working as a working actress, and sometimes in fairly decent sized parts, but she just wasn't known yet. Her name wasn't familiar.
Right.
Then after that movie and her Oscar nomination, she was and remains. So what we would do is we'd go back to all the earlier films she was in where we didn't list her in our cast.
Right.
Because she didn't matter then.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things. Now she matters. So every year there'd be a handful of those overnight, sensations that we would plug into the book. And it gave me great satisfaction to get to do that.
Well, it's given me great satisfaction to talk to you, Leonard. I know our viewers are going to love it. Hopefully next year or whenever, at post-pandemic, we can see you in person up at our film festival. And you've always been so supportive of what we've been doing up here. So, thank you for from me and from everybody watching. We really appreciate
Well,
it.
it's my pleasure, EJ, and I love what you and Kimmy do to keep the fires burning and to sort of you spread positivity. You know, that's why I think we get along, because we both have that same outlook.
Mhm.
You know, the world has its trials and tribulations. We can't stop that, but we can choose to look for good things and for things that bring us satisfaction and happiness. And that's what we choose to do.
Well, I think the perfect cure for the pandemic for me has been to go through and watch my old Buster Keatons over again. So, so I
Never a
completely
bad
get that.
time for that.
That's right. Well, Leonard, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you for the kind words and thank you for your time. I know you're an incredibly busy guy, and hopefully we'll see you soon in person.
That would be awfully nice. And sit together and watch a silent movie.
That would be perfect. Looking forward to it.
Same here.
So thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.